a motion to, okay, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda. Sam, Martin, all in favor? Perfect. I'll need a motion to approve the minutes from our previous meeting, May 4th, 2022. Looking for mover seconder. Sam, Martin again, all in favor? Perfect, wonderful. Any business arising from the minutes? Anybody have any issues they want to talk about vis-a-vis? We just started, Justin, you're like 2 seconds behind, you're good.
My apologies.
No problem. Any business from, doesn't appear. Now, what I'd like to do, if the committee is okay with it, as we have our accountant here, we have our CAO from the city, as well as administration from counties, or South Glengarry, sorry. If it's okay, I'd like to discuss the auditor's report, or if you will. I'd like to get our auditor on the floor first, so we can kind of clear that up. Is everybody okay with that? All right, you okay? I know, Stephen, technically you're a little further ahead, but I just assume, like I said. Okay, Jamie, I guess you're on the docket then. I think I've got it right. So, auditor's report. Go ahead, Jamie, please, and thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think everyone knows who I am. I'm Jamie Pollock, and partner with M&P and Chartered Professional Accountant. I believe you have a draft copy in your package, but I could try to share my screen, but I won't. I can't, but I'll go through it. If there's any questions or concerns, just stop me, and I'd be more than happy to address them with you. So we do have our audited financial statements for your year ended December 31st, 2021. We do have our management responsibility page, which we will require a signature by either, last time it was the chair or maybe someone from South Glengarry, but it's indicated management responsibility for these financial statements. If we go
I can do that. I can do that at the appropriate time. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, no problem. So we have our independent auditor's report, and I'll just go through a few things. Obviously, it's addressed to the Board of Directors of the Cornwall Regional Airport Commission. We have audited the financial statements of the organization, which comprise a statement of financial position as of December 31st, 2021 and December 31st, 2020, and the statements of operations, accumulated surplus, changes in net financial assets and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, except for the possible effects of the matter described in the basis for qualified opinion section of our report, the accompanying financial statements presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the organization as of December 31st, 2021 and December 2020, and the results of its operations, changes in net debt or net financial assets, and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. Now, it's almost a clean opinion. That's what you want to hear from us as your auditors, but there is one thing which is more of a technicality. That's something we couldn't do, only relates to 2020, which kind of flows through 2021. So we have our paragraph for the basis for qualified opinion, and this was communicated with South Glengarry administration, Michael, earlier today, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it. It states we were unable to verify the existence, completeness, or cutoff regarding the inventory of 27,192 as of December 31st, 2020. We did not observe the accounting of the physical inventory at that date, since that date was prior to our appointment as auditors. We were unable to satisfy ourselves as to the inventory quantities at that date by other audit procedures. Therefore, we are not able to determine whether any adjustments might be necessary to fuel revenue and cost of sales for the years ended December 31st, 2021 and December 31st, 2020. Inventory as of December 31st, 2020, which is just the previous year, and net financial assets and accumulated surplus balances as of January 1st and December 31st for both the 2021 and 2020 years. So because we couldn't go back in time really and count the inventory at December 31st, 2020. We don't know what was there, but we did count it as of December 31st, 2021. We're happy with the inventory, what's there, but but we do not know about the inventory at December 31st, 2020. Other than that, we're in a position to issue a clean audit opinion on the financial statements, except for the inventory that's reported on the financial statements. We also have another matter paragraph, and it just states that the financial statements for the Airport Commission for the year ended December 31st, 2020 were reviewed by MNP, who expressed an unqualified review conclusion on those statements dated February 16th, 2022. Other than that, the rest of it's the same auditor's reports that you receive at your council meetings. We indicate the responsibilities of management for the financial statements and those charged with governance. And of course, our responsibilities as auditors and some of our limitations as such. So if we go to the statement of financial position, this is your balance sheet. It's at December 31st, 2021. It is at a particular point in time. When we do become auditors for the first year, we are responsible for the audit of your closing numbers for 2020. We're of course able to do that for all the amounts except for the inventory. So at the end of the year, at December 31st, you had cash of $72,800, an increase of about $25,000 from the previous year. Accounts receivable is $20,000 compared to $5,000, and that's mainly due to HST and outstanding receivables from user fees. Inventory, it is doubled at $50,000, but there was purchase that was made right before year end. We counted the inventory after year end and kind of worked backwards, and $50,200 is the inventory at December 31st. Because of the purchase for fuel, you have payables, which is higher. Because of that, it's $55,000 compared to $9,000. And deferred contributions is now up at $87,000 compared to $56,000. And I'll go through the mechanics of that as we go through the notes to the financial statements. At the end of the year, your net financial assets is brought down to nil. And that's due to, you will see kind of a loss for the year. Not a big loss, but I'll go through that in a little bit. And then we have your non-financial assets, which is your tangible capital assets, $675,000, and that's your closing accumulated surplus. If we go to the statement of financial activities for the fiscal year ended December 31st, we do have a net deficit for the year. And just to let you know, this is according to public sector accounting standards. It might not be necessarily what you think of what an operating surplus should be, but on the statements, we have a deficit for the year of $40,864. Last year's deficit was $27,021, and that's usually lined up with the amount of the amortization. We had a kind of higher deficit this year, which equals the amortization, which is a non-cash item of $25,554, and enough deficit to use up the reserve fund of $15,310. The reserve fund was set up about 10 years ago. It pertained to 1 year of particular surplus that wasn't put into deferred contributions, but put into a reserve fund instead. That reserve fund was utilized for the 2021 fiscal year, so it's non-existent at December 31st. If we go up to the top, we have our municipal contributions. City of Cornwall contributed $103,049. South Glengarry contributed $70,000, and then we have a transfer to from deferred contributions of $31,000. So because it's a contribution to, it looks like you had a surplus, an operating surplus of $31,342 for the year. But because South Glengarry contributed an extra $50,000 in the year, that was applied to their, I'll say, deficit and their deferred contribution amount. Once you take that amount off, you actually had a deficit for the year of $18,658. So just to let you know, that's how that deferred contribution has worked in the previous year. We're in 2020. you brought in 45,588 to cover off a deficit from last year. So instead of a 45,000 deficit, it's only an 18,658 deficit for 2021. As we go through some of the other financial statements highlights, fuel was up by $30,000 and higher than budget, but the budget is at net amount of cost of sales. I didn't know what the gross or cost of sales amount, but it's only the net, but the fuel for the year was higher at $176,000. And that's due to more activities and price of fuel. Hainer and access fees, 27,000, and leasing fees higher than last year and a little bit higher than budget of 29,000. So your total revenue of 376,159 for the year, higher by $8,000 from last year. So that was good to see. Under expenditures, your total expenditures for the year is 417,000, up by $22,000 from the previous year. Administration costs, it's much lower than it was in 46,000 from the previous year. The airport operations contract was fixed fee and very little change. Amortization, that's on the TCAs. Fuel, $140,000, that's up to go with the increase in sales, and that's because of the price and more usage in 2021. Most of the other expense items are in line. You will see professional fees is at 14,000, and unfortunately that is our fees that part accrued for the audit for 2021, so that's why it's much higher from last year. So I'm guilty on that one. And repairs and maintenance was higher at 54,000 compared to 44,000 from the previous year. So we have a closing deficit for the year of 40,864 for PSAS purposes. Is there any questions or concerns before I move on to the other parts of the financial statements?
Well, looks like we're good. Carry on, Jamie, please.
No problem. So during the year, if we take our PSAS deficit of 40,000, we add back the amortization, we have a decrease in your net financial assets of 15,310, and that is pulling down the remaining carry forward net financial assets, which was the reserve fund. So now it is nil at the end of December 31st, 2021. Cash flow, overall, your cash is up by $25,000, and that's mainly because of timing through the increased timing of payables and the amounts coming from South Glengarry of 25,000, which explains the increase in deferred contributions of 31,000 for the year. Your tangible capital assets is broken down between land improvements, building equipment, and runway. It's recorded for net book value purposes under PSAS, so it's historical cost less accumulated amortization. The net is $676,000. We usually like to take up that net book value and compare it to your cost amount. And that what that does is shows the remaining life of the assets. And right now it calculates at 19%. So you have about 1/5 of your remaining useful life left of your assets before they really required replacement. And we know what that is. That makes sense because of the discussions about the upcoming maybe repaving of the runway. Currently, we have the runway almost fully amortized, which is a net book value of 28,500. Equipment is 60,000. The building at 125. Land improvements almost fully amortized, and then any land at cost 458. Now, as I said, this is recorded for accounting purposes. It's not necessarily your fair value or your replacement value. I would expect replacement value is a lot larger than historical costs, but historical costs we have recorded at 3.5, less accumulate amortization of 2.8 with a net book value of 676. As we go through the audit, there's one thing we still need to complete is the audit of the opening numbers of the TCAs. We're just got to finish that up, but we don't expect to be any adjustments of this because most of these assets that's recorded at cost have been almost fully amortized. But we just have a few things we still need to do going through the financial statements to finalize that, and that's just one of the process we still need to do as of today. Going through the notes to the financial statements, there's really not much till we get to page 9, note 2, deferred contributions receivable. So we have, of course, the city of Cornwall and the township portion. So at the start of the year, city had 78,105 of funds sitting in deferred, where the township had a receivable of 21,966. The extra contribution above the 20 of the $50,000 that was made by the South Glengarry Township this year was applied against that 21,000. So once that is done, you had a remaining deficit for the year of 18,000, which is allocated between the two to the point where the closing balance is now a perfect 85-15 split. So out of the closing deferred contributions of 87,481, 85% of that pertains to the city of 74,436 and 13,000 for the township. So during the current year with the deficit, like I said, of approximately 18,000, once we do the 85-15 split, the city only had to use a portion of their deferred contribution to offset that deficit of about 3669, and we utilize the rest for the South Glengarry portion. And this is the audit adjustments that we did. So now the closing balance is now 74 and 13 to equal to the 87. Is there any questions on that, on how we derived that at those amounts for the end of December 31st?
Any questions? Let's see, Maureen, I've got you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is the additional money that was contributed by South Glengarry, what was the purpose of that? The $50,000, do we know? Like, was it a municipal contribution towards the operations, or was it a sale of land, for example? Do we know what that balance was made up of, that difference?
Anybody want to tackle it? All right, Martin, go
I
ahead.
can answer that question, but I could probably need some verification maybe from South Glengarry, but that amount came in February of 2021. And my understanding that it was helped to pay for the study that was done at the airport for the feasibility study. And so my understanding is that what the extra contribution was for, but that's just my understanding of it.
Martin, I saw your hand up. Do you want to throw something in there?
I don't know 50,000 if it was was it one payment or a combination? Because there was a $25,000 land payment. That was the amount for the land. Sorry about my voice.
So my question is, if it was for the land, my question is that probably should be recorded separately from the municipal contributions that also determine the surpluses and the deficits, right? Because if it was for a purchase of land, it's something that's like the municipal contributions are based on municipal contributions for operating and capital. And so if it was a transaction that was outside of that, I don't like that, to me shouldn't muddy up what we understand to be the funding formula or the balance of what is paid between the two municipalities, because then that also affects the deficit and also affects the balances that are set aside based on what has been contributed by each municipality. So if we need to take that, Jamie, if we need to take that offline and we can engage Tim in that conversation just to take a look at it a little bit further, But if it's not a municipal contribution towards the operations, I'm not sure that it should be shown that way.
Yeah,
So per
maybe,
your comment, if it was contributed to pay for that study, that would be part of the operation. So then that is okay.
so we can take this offline. Ultimately, it's still going to be shown as deferred contributions, but maybe separate from the operations. And I expect there was no land purchases made yet, correct? Based on my understanding. Is this for a future land purchase? Because I didn't see anything, so I just want to verify.
Looking for anyone who wants to try and handle this, or do we?
Well, I
Martin?
can't talk very well, but South Glengarry bought a piece of land from the airport commission for 25,000. I don't know where it shows up in there. I don't know when it was paid, but it wasn't 50,000, it was 25.
Okay. So
Well,
we'll, I
Would the
have
com-
to,
Sorry,
ahead.
James. I was just gonna say, how would we like to proceed? There's a bit of a question here. I'm not getting a sense it's definitively answered. Anyone have a suggestion how we proceed?
Can I suggest I share my screen so we bring it to the point where the question's being asked?
Sure.
now, obviously being a first year, any first year audit is challenging on the best of times. Unfortunately, the person who looked after the books for South Glengarry on behalf of the commission left in December or even late November. So we were going through transactions that were not fully completed or recorded. So that brought a lot of the challenges. So based on my understanding, we'll have to find out where that $25,000 is recorded, if it was recorded in 2021 or in 2022, but it's likely part of either the administration cost or the repairs and maintenance for the year.
Okay, so I can't see everybody all at the same time with the screen being shared. Anyone else want to throw in an opinion or a statement or anything to that effect?
I think, Mr. Chair, not to take up any more of anybody's time, I think that I can work with our auditors and talk to Tim about it outside of this meeting. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, what I would like to maybe consider, if the committee or if the commission's okay with it, certainly I'll let any other questions be asked. Of course, what maybe might be in order of pending any other questions is, rather than approve the auditor's report today, a motion to defer to iron out this, I'll say, a discrepancy for lack of a better word. But what I'd like to do is proceed with any other questions and then kind of go from there, if that's okay with everybody. So that being said, do I have any other questions on the actual report? Any other questions? Trying to go through my list of everybody. Feel free to go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I guess we'll have to just do a little bit more digging and vouching. And I appreciate maybe the extra time. And this is why we always present these financial statements in draft, just in case someone knows something that we don't. And of course, there was a changeover in kind of the administration who looks after the airport. So there's questions. I guess we now have more questions for looking for more answers on.
Okay, so what I'll do moving forward, are there any other questions on the auditor's report? I don't see any on that page. Don't see anybody there. Then what I'll ask for is a motion perhaps to defer approval of the auditor's report pending discussions between our CAO and the CAO of South Glengarry to kind of, and potentially our auditor as well, to get this nice and clean. Is everybody okay with that?
I just mentioned one more thing before we end.
Sure. Go ahead.
So the commission will remember that we've applied for a grant through RATI, through the FedDev. Part of that grant was for revenues lost in 2020 and 2021, which certainly would cover any deficit for 2021 that we applied for. So hopefully we hear good news on that, and we expect to shortly. Just we should note that. I can also share the details on that. Everybody's aware of the application for the grant, but we can share that with Jamie as well.
Okay,
Yeah, because that would be nice if we know what that is, and maybe it depends on time, and if you're 95% certain that you're going to receive it or will receive in the next few weeks, we can set that up as a receivable in revenue for the commission.
Okay.
The only thing I was going to have kind of a management letter point, if you don't mind, and South Glengarry administration is fully aware of this, is that the accounting was done in Excel using pivot tables. And if you're not familiar with pivot tables, it's very cumbersome to go through it and making sure everything is recorded. We recommend that. And of course, administration was fully aware of this, that is best to maybe go on a off-the-shelf kind of accounting software such as QuickBooks or Sage, aka Simply, to do the accounting keeping going forward. And that's the process that South Glengarry is going to do going forward, because it was very cumbersome. And if you're really not a techie person, or even with much of an accounting background, it is very hard to go through it. And there was transactions missing, no fault of anybody at the township, but it was basically set up for one person to do it. And when you have someone new to come in, it was very hard to take over. And the best way to make sure, if there's someone else in the future that goes on sick leave or extended vacation or leave, someone else can move into that role more seamless than it was this past year.
fair enough. Thank you for that note. And so that being said, if I can get a mover maybe to defer Martin, Justin, and Sam, I see you now. Any questions? Sam, do you have a question, or you just okay?
No, I was just putting my hand up for the.
Sorry, any questions or debate, discussion? Trying to catch everybody here. Okay, so seeing none, all in favor of deferring auditors' reports? 1, 2, 3, I got 3, 4. All right, motion carried. Excellent, thanks folks for your patience. Jamie, I guess that kind of leaves you off the hook. You no longer have to, you can go on with the rest of your adventures today. And
well, it looks like I have to do more work, Mr. Chair. So, but we want to make sure we got this right before we release our auditor's report, and I appreciate the feedback, and we'll make sure we get what needs to be recorded before we make this public.
excellent, thank you.
Okay, and if there's nothing else of me, if you don't mind, I will excuse myself for the rest of the meeting, unless there's anything else you require of us.
I think we're good. I don't see anybody want to chime in? All right, thanks, Jamie. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Everyone have a great week.
Now, that being said, I guess, Stephen, you're now on the docket to have the airport manager's update. Stephen Small. Okay, Stephen, away we go.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let's see. Not a lot going on here at the airport. The Academy of Aeronautics is still carrying out their maintenance and awaiting Ministry of Education approval to operate in Ontario. The terminal trailer is seeing a lot more use, so I've hired the services of a cleaning lady, Lynn Fraser, and she's taking care of cleaning the trailer once a week for me and keeping it tidy with all the increased traffic of the mechanics and folks. When we go over to the tie-down area, with our plan to try and squeeze in 6 more hangars, I finally have an estimate from Chad Latre of $12,000. That'll bring in 6 more feeds. They're going to use our existing transformer that's on the field and put in 6 feeds to the hangars, and the hangars will have their own meters on the building, as opposed to in our meter station, increasing the meter base in our little building. That, along with an estimated cost of $7,000 for the excavation work to get those wires underground, and Cornell Electric fees of $7,000, brings it to $19,000. So I don't know if everybody remembers, but that's going where the airplanes are tied down, kind of the north row of outside parked airplanes. That's where I had planned on putting 6 more hangars. I propose maybe we could recover that 19, we'll say $20,000, by charging a fee to those 6 hangars. See if they're willing to just divide it by 6, roughly $3,500 or so, as a one-time fee to get service, and proceed with a few more hangars. I have 3 people right now that are very serious. The last one just came on in the last couple of weeks, Mr. Mark Bourdon, who has his own airport back in Maxville. He came on asking for a 60 by 60 hangar, which is quite large. I proposed meeting with him to see if we can squeeze it in somewhere in there, possibly at an end. So that's where we're at with that. Of course, we would have to temporarily cover that money until we get paid back if we do go ahead with a cost recovery system. So I'm not sure how you all feel about that, or how we can proceed. And then we have just listed some of the things that went on at the airport in the last since the last meeting. The Father's Day breakfast was quite a success at 550 breakfasts. A lot of people were looking for a place to go, I guess. So there's a lot of positive. So projects we'd like to see done in 2022 is relocation of the tie downs that will be taken up by the hangars going in. That was an estimate provided by Spooner Paving, I think last year, and the power for the 6 hangars that I just spoke about. In the long term, the taxiway is definitely it's got to be on the top of our list of priorities. If the Academy of Aeronautics returns, which we all hope they do, because the fuel sales were great for the few months that they were here and operating, we're going to need that taxiway to make the most efficient use of the runway and to keep the traffic flowing, keep the conflicts down and the traffic flowing. The commercial and private building lots, we all know about that, and the fencing replacement. The original 1984 fence is finished. So that's about it for me. There's the fuel sales summary. Everything's going up slightly, so it's all good there. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions or how we can proceed.
Do I have any questions from the committee? Let's see. I don't see you off the hook as well. You're free.
As far as the supplying the hangar feeds, eventually, well, we'll need to make a decision on that, whether we're a go or not, so I can move forward with these 3 gentlemen.
You need a motion, Stephen, to that effect, to decide what we want to do, or?
Yeah, I guess we need everybody on board, or majority on board, so we can move forward.
That being said, I'm looking for a motion to, I guess, move along with mover seconder to move along with the proposal. Anybody want to venture a hand or a comment?
Mr. Chair, just prior to that, is Mr. Small, do you have an estimate in terms of the payback time?
Right,
So if we were to charge for the hangars, what the payback time would be on the funds?
well, with three serious builders right now, which I hope I could get them all on board, that would be half of it back immediately. The remainder, we've been building hangars pretty much on average of one a year.
Yeah.
Some years none, some years 2 and 3. So I would expect possibly a 4-year payback to get all our money back of the 20,000 roughly.
okay. Any other comments?
Of course, sorry, just to add to that, the other cost is to move the tie down areas. We don't have to do that right away. We'll have 8 outdoor spots available, right? If we take away 8, we still have 8, which is pretty much what the number of airplanes we have outside right now. So we would be full. We could kind of tweak that by putting some airplanes, squeezing them in different spots where there isn't asphalt. Some of the ones that aren't doing anything, there's about 2 or 3 airplanes that are semi-abandoned, if you want to say they're paying their bill, but they don't fly. We could find another place to locate them. But eventually we would need more parking area and of course more hangar building lots.
Okay, Mr. Small is looking for some direction. Can I get somebody offering me something to work with, folks, or help me out, to mover, seconder, and takers? Martin, do I get a sense you're gonna give me something I can work with?
I have lots to say and not a very good place to say it. I don't want to say anything we shouldn't say here, but I guess it's obvious because it was in open that Cornwall wants out of the airport. So it's hard for us to move forward in these projects if half of the people in the commission are almost what I would call lame duck. I mean, I'm asking for advice. Do we move ahead as a commission as if we're, full steam ahead? Or do we hold on and wait and see how this falls out? And that's my dilemma. Like, I would love to get these hangars up and rolling. That was our plan as a commission. We're going to make great strides and we're going to see things move ahead, but it's like everything's come to a halt here now. So, I mean, I can make a motion that we do this, but if it involves the 2 municipalities throwing more money in, are they ready to do that?
Valid point, Martin. I think most commission members probably quietly feel the same way as you do. Anyone want to venture an opinion, or do we just leave it sort of sit there and defer until the respective councils resolve their outstanding issue? Anybody want to try something? Justin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can appreciate that sentiment. I think for a project like moving the tie downs, that makes sense because of the cost, the price tag attached with that, and the fact that we can get by without doing it now. I would say that when it comes to the new hangars, if there's 3 people who are looking to build now and they need the electrical now, holding that up, they may lose interest or they may look elsewhere. So that could potentially damage the airport in the future, regardless of what the governance of the airport looks like. So maybe that's something we should look at moving forward on. That's just my thoughts on that.
Anyone else want to offer an opinion? Some suggestions? Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm on the same page as Councillor Lang. I mean, is there a point moving forward in a project with both municipalities if there's, if we're not sure what we're doing or where we're going with this? I mean, 4 years long payback. I don't think anybody knows how this will all end out right now, but how is it just adding complications to an already complicated situation?
Well, as I see it, ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 options. Option 1, we defer until South Glengarry and City of Cornwall get their act together, or we move ahead with the manager's recommendation. So it's either one or the other. I don't care what motion you decide to make, but I think one or the other needs to be made. So Martin, what would you suggest we do?
I'm gonna say we move ahead. I think otherwise there's no point to us being here, so.
Fair enough.
My thing is to move ahead, so I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to pursue the respective project. Sam, I'm assuming you're seconding.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a mover seconder. Any debate on the motion? Not seeing any hands. All in favor? All right, so that's 4. We are good to go. I hope, Stephen, that answers your question. Commission
Yep,
is
that
giving
helps a lot.
you the support you need to push ahead, so we're good with that. Any other questions with regards to the manager's report? Seeing any or hearing any mics? I'm assuming we're done with the manager's report. Our next item, of course, correspondence. Michelle, do we have any correspondence?
No, we don't.
All right. That being said, item 8, we need to move to a closed session according to the agenda. So I'm going to need a mover and a seconder to move into closed. Mover, seconder, and I'm trying to get a line on everybody. I have a mover, seconder, all in favor of going to closed. There we go. We're good. All right, so we are in closed. Good, so we're back. All right, that being said, back to the agenda. Just trying to work off my phone here with the agenda. Bear with me for a second. I don't see anything else on the agenda. I guess next meeting, August 3rd, does that still seem reasonable to you, Tim, or anybody else for that matter? Are we still okay with August 3rd? Or do we want to wait
Yeah.
till?
I think that's good. We'll keep it there, especially in light of we're waiting for news on whether our grant is accepted
Okay.
through the FedDev. And the other thing, just of note to the commission, that we made the meeting at 2 o'clock today. Normally it was at 3 before, so if everyone's okay with 2 o'clock, I think that works better. Or if it works fine, it's a good time. Everyone's
Good.
okay with that.
I'm seeing mostly nodding heads. Nobody's objecting. So that being said, we're good. I'm gonna need a motion to adjourn. Martin, Justin, and I see all the hands go up, so I'm assuming we're in favor. All right, thanks folks for your patience. Have a great afternoon.
Take care, everybody. See ya.
Take care.
In August.